Call to order the Plan Commission for December 10th, 2024.
You're reading off the minutes.
Stop it. For January 14th, 2025. Can you certify the posting of the meeting, please?
Yeah. I certify that on Tuesday, January 7th, 2025, the agenda for the Town of Rome Plan Commission meeting for Tuesday, January 14th, 2025 was posted at the following locations: Rome Town Hall, 9:15 a.m., Quick Trip LLC, 9:24 a.m., Nakusa Port Edward State Bank, 9:30 a.m. It was posted on the Town of Rome website on 1/07/2025, and legal notice was published in the Wisconsin Rapids Tribune on 12/31/2024 and 1/07/2025.
And can I take roll call, please, starting from my right?
Gabriel here.
Dilge here.
Jumati here.
Capel here.
Heather Dalton is excused, as well as Paul Janzik. We also have Lexi Dargowitz, who is our zoning administrator, and Attorney Nick Flanagan, our town attorney. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
We have a motion to approve our agenda and by Tom and a second by Lori. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Do we have any orange cards for citizens' comments?
I have one orange card.
Okay. During the citizen comment period of the agenda, the Plan Commission welcomes comments from any town resident, not a member of the Plan Commission, on any item not on the agenda. Please know that pursuant to state law, the Commission cannot engage in conversation with you, but may ask questions. The Commission may refer the item to staff, a standing committee, or a future Commission agenda for discussion and action. Each person wishing to speak will have up to 3 minutes to speak. Speakers are asked to submit a card to the Commission Chair providing their name, address, and topic for discussion. The Commission will also take comment from the public on agenda items as called by the Chair, but not during citizen comment. Please note that once the Commission begins discussion on an agenda item, no further comment will be allowed from the public on that issue. So we have someone that would like to speak.
Yes. So I received a comment from John Larson about camper parking on properties.
About what?
Camper parking on property.
Okay. Is John Larson available? Would you like to go to the, and please give us your address as well?
Oh, 1 second.
John Larson. John Larson. I have property at 1000 County Road D. It's at corner of D and 10th Avenue, across from Spring Branch Cemetery, which I purchased in 2019. And before I purchased it, I had called Building and Zoning to make sure that I could leave my camper there year-round. And I was told by the man in charge, Greg, a man named Greg, that yes, I could. And now 5 years later, I'm being told that I cannot, that I have to move my camper. So, I don't know what else to say.
I have a question.
Okay.
So every year since you purchased that property and placed your camper there, you've left it on that property?
Ever since 2019, it's been there. Now, Greg told me that since the property's in Camelot Pines subdivision, that there were no restrictions for campers on the property, that I could leave it there year-round.
I guess I would be interested in some information on that from staff and find out exactly, but it's hard to know what somebody promised somebody years ago that's no longer with us. So, was he sent a notice?
would we like to have you do some research on that and then get back to us?
Well, I
Or-
looked into the property file already, and there was nothing in the property file saying that the lot was non-conforming. There was no notes from Greg in the property file saying that the camper would be allowed to stay on there. I looked through our ordinances to see when that got changed, and it was around 2009 that the ordinance got changed, stating that campers had to be removed from the camping for the camping season. So if the property was bought in 2019, it would not have been a non-conforming lot. So there would not be anything in the property file stating that.
Mr. Attorney, what would you?
You're looking at me, I would just say that I wouldn't have even said that much. I would have said that this is an enforcement matter, and you would refer that back to staff to review whatever information he may have in his files, along with any of the information that Lexi has seen.
So then our staff will then contact Mr. Larson with regard to this issue? Okay, so.
I can't.
What will happen is our staff will contact you to go over like a timeline of what's happened, and she's already checked the property file with regard to your property, and she can give you some insight into what she found or did not find inside that property file.
Yeah, she told me. I think she was who I talked to on the phone.
Okay.
But I didn't know if maybe the property isn't, but maybe the subdivision is.
Okay.
But it's Camelot Pines. And that's what he told me. Since Camelot Pines didn't have any restrictions, yes. But if I was across the street in Camelot Lakes, then no. But since I'm Camelot Pines, he said it was okay.
Okay, if, it is an enforcement issue, as Attorney Flanagan mentioned, so we would be referring that to our staff to figure out just exactly where to go from here, and whether, you can verify the Camelot Pines as opposed to Camelot Lakes, and it is an ordinance issue, so that is enforcement.
Right. I understand. I'm not trying to make any waves or anything. Alls I would ask that since it's already been there 5 years, can I keep it there and then start conforming for the next season? Because I live 200 miles away, and it would be very difficult for me to prepare that camper to get it moved, stored, and everything. That's all I'm asking.
I would say, again, so this is completely an enforcement issue. That is something that could be discussed with the zoning administrator. I'm happy to review it with her, and we can discuss some
The
timelines
going
to
forward.
correct, yes.
Okay.
I didn't hear.
They will, if you would contact our zoning administrator and set up a time where you can get together and you can decide where you will go from this point forward, and take it from there.
So call the zoning commissioner?
That's Lexi, the zoning administrator.
Okay.
And you can work with her, and perhaps Attorney Flanagan may become involved with regard to determining what we can and cannot do as a town with the ordinance and the enforcement.
I understand the ordinance, and if that's the case, I'm just asking for some leniency to
And that's something that you can discuss,
start conforming
right.
next season.
And that's something you can discuss with Lexi and with Attorney Flanagan.
So when can I call? Anytime tomorrow, or?
They're here, staff is here from 8 to 4. So you can call anytime tomorrow, and she might have a card available, or we can get one off the counter for you after the meeting if you're staying, or if you need to head back. You can
Okay.
give her number is
Fair enough.
715-325-8019. And that's the number you could call, and she can assist you. And like we said, they'll walk through, it's a common number. If you don't put it out there, someone will put it out there for you.
Is that the number that I called her at?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I'll do that.
And they'll work with you to figure out, maybe you can look in your documents and see if there's anything that you might
All I
have
have is
to.
notes from when I called Greg.
Okay. Well, thank you for making the trip up
But
to
thank
speak
you
with
for
us.
taking the time to talk to me.
Yeah. Have a safe trip back.
Thank you. Okay, and there's no other orange cards, correct? Okay. No action contemplated except possible referral to future agenda, information updates, meeting recaps, recent correspondence, current events, and announcements. Bill? Oh, on.
I have nothing.
Tom?
Shermalot Fishery this Saturday at Sherwood Lodge. That's all I have.
Okay. Lori?
Nothing.
Nothing? Subcommittee, Plan Commission RTC Subcommittee update?
Yep, so the RTC subcommittee met on 12/13/2024 and 1/3/2025. The next meeting will be on January 16th. During the January 2nd, 2025 town board meeting, the subcommittee got approved to accept the donated master planning services. They'll now work on engaging a master planner. During the next meetings, the subcommittee members will focus on use controls, and they will look at the standards that exist across the Rome Town Center. This includes looking at the previous documents for the RTC and Alpine Village to try to understand where possible discrepancy in numbers came from. The goal of these meetings is to gather materials to create more working documents to provide the master planner to expedite the planning processes.
Anyone have questions on this? No? Okay, the short-term rental staff report.
Okay, so, staff has received one short-term rental application at this point. So I've been in the process of creating the new zoning permit for short-term rentals. I finished it on Friday, actually.
Oh, that takes that question out there.
Yep. So I actually have not had the chance to even give it to the person yet, so I have not gone through the full process yet. But my big update was included in your packet was the heat map that Attorney Flanagan kindly asked me for, which shows all the short-term rentals in the town of Rome that are actively renting. That's the keyword, actively renting. So I grabbed those from our host compliance site. And those are all the ones that also currently have the license with the town. So that's how we know they're actively renting. So the first two pictures, they look the same. The difference is one of them has words over it, the other one doesn't, so it's easier to read. And then I also included an image that just shows all of the points of where the short-term rentals are located.
And how many do we have right now? About 100?
There's about 100 and I think it was like 112, somewhere around that range.
Last count.
And what, I see you have the graph with regard to sparse to dense.
Mm-hmm.
What constitutes dense and what constitutes sparse?
In this, I can go back and look up what I had set to. I believe it was how many were per 15 miles. So
15 miles?
I think it was not 15 miles, 15 acres. I had it set to a weird. I had to have it set to a weird increment because of how small Rome was. So I can look real quick at what I had it set to. Let me double check. Maybe, possibly. But I can get back to you with that. But
Okay.
It seems like it would be less than 15.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a good number to know. In the picture with the pinpoints you gave us, is that what this one here is?
Yep, that's all the pinpoints showing where the actual amounts were.
They're really congregated around the Lake Arrowhead and southwest portion of town.
Yep. Let me see if I can get my application to open real quick.
Are you having difficulty getting it?
I'm pretty sure it's by acres, but I can double check and get back to you.
So 15 acres. Okay. I'll just put down 15 acres, and then if you could just verify,
Yep.
you know, what you used for the standard for the density.
Because usually it likes going into weird units, and usually it goes by survey acres, or because it's doesn't like going by feet, because that's too small. So usually that's the smallest increment it will go by with something like this,
Okay.
with how far apart the houses have to be. So
I'd like to thank you on this. It gives us a perspective, an aerial view of the town and where the short-term rentals are, which I don't think any of us have seen before. So it puts it in perspective to what is going on in the town. Very nice, actually.
Yeah, well done.
Okay, any other questions for Lexi on the short-term rental?
Nope.
Okay.
So you said you only had one come through this last month. Was that correct?
yep, I only
Okay.
had one application come through.
It's too cold.
I would say they taper off in the winter anyways.
Yeah.
So it gives you actually a chance to play with the new system and not feel overwhelmed.
All right, then I would like to open the public hearing. The first item, consideration of an amendment to the site plan and plan of operation requested by Stuffit Storage LLC to update their site plan from the previous owner's plan on property located at State Highway 13, described as Lot 2 of CSM 2313, located in part of the southeast 1/4, northwest 1/4, Section 17, Town 20 North, Range 6 East, Town of Rome, Adams County, Wisconsin, with a parcel number of 0300079000000.
Perfect. Applicant Stuffit Storage LLC requests approval for a revision to their site plan of operation for the property located on State Highway 13. Applicant received initial approvals for their site plan on November 8th, 2022 and November 14th, 2023 from Plan Commission. The applicant is amending the site plan of operation to completely redo the building design and operation plans from the previous property owner. For reference, the last approved site plan of operation from November 2023 is included in your packet. A copy of the conditions associated with that approval are also included in your packet. Letters were sent to 12 property owners within 200 feet of the affected property.
Okay, is there someone here on behalf of? All right, would you like to come up to the podium and give us your name and address, please?
I'm Shane Roosh with Roosh Companies and Stuffit Storage, 2221 Oak Street, Wisconsin Rapids.
Okay. Okay, and you are revising the previous site plan from the November of 2023.
Yes.
And that, okay. go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. Yes, I bought that property from Dean Ramston. He had gotten all the approvals and stuff, and then I had purchased the property from him. I'm sure, maybe you remember, I was here, it's probably been about a year since I was here last time, and I had brought forth just some changes. I think a lot of it was, he was looking to do more of a condo where he rents out a space, and then there was kind of a common space that people could hang out in and stuff like that. So I eliminated kind of the common areas. It's just going to be basically monthly storage instead of more of a condo type style where each unit would be sold, and then, you know, maybe there was like an HOA fee or something like that. So, well, no, I'm just, you know, however it was designed before. So it's still storage. It's just, I just was changing it to, you know, basically a monthly storage, just like I currently own now. So.
Nick's got his hand up.
Yes, sir.
Just so I can clarify, previously, as was mentioned, this was brought forward as a condominium.
Yes. Yep.
Plat. Are you still going to go through that process, or are you just going to seek to develop this as storage units?
Correct. I did not bring forth the,
Yeah,
that was,
I know.
okay, yep, that was Dean Ramston. So when I bought it, when I came to the one meeting, it's got to be about a year ago now, I guess, it's strictly just monthly rental storage units for boats and RVs and things like that.
So then, one other point, and that's more generally to the Plan Commission. So previously, there's been approvals for the conditional use permit. That'll continue on, although you had conditions in there that related to the condominium.
It doesn't.
I think it had to do with some of the
Covenant.
condo declarations or the covenants that are associated with it. The other one was outside storage. Be very easy if you chose to do so. You could just reference that outside storage in your approval of a site plan of operation. The main reason that we're here then is because there is then a fairly significant change, a substantial modification being done because it will not be a condominium development.
Well, that's where one of my questions, please, is coming from, and I need additional more clarity on that. If either Nick or Lexi, I was going to go Nikki and Lex, sorry, but Nick and Lexi, it says a revision to their site plan of operation for the property, and that the initial approvals on those dates to the Plan Commission, they're amending that one to completely redo the building design and operation plans from the previous property owner. So if we have a new property owner and a new set of design and plans, why are we not doing this? Why are we basing this on the previous property owner and what he was proposing if there's such difference? Because I do understand if it's a hotel or a restaurant, existing business, and it continues when that's sold, that's been allowed. But why in this instance? And I don't understand why we're going back instead of forward with the new applicant.
Sure, it's a good question. So we have had situations where there's been an ownership change and the new owner desires to develop the property differently. Sometimes the development is a completely different type of development. This one is very similar, it's just not going to be a condominium plat. It may have some layout changes, but you do have on this parcel, you look at it from the parcel's perspective, right? On this parcel, you have an approved conditional use permit previously. You have an approved site plan of operation previously. The amendment to the site plan of operation is because although the use is the same, right, very similar, it's going to be a different maybe site design, plan of operation. You know, a lot of the operational components are going to be different, and because you have that previous approval on this lot, then you're doing it as an amendment.
Okay, and would that also explain then why some of the items were left blank on the new applicant's site plan or plan of operation application? Because I have a number of things that are blank, some of it's similar, but some of it's blank.
Which ones are you talking about?
For example,
Number 6, number...
4, 5, 6, 7 for traffic flows, where the building across the road, we had to go through a traffic flow with them around the back of the bank. You've got another business that's a neighbor there. How's that traffic flow gonna work? Some of those things are,
Well, I also notice on the site plan of operation provided previously, those are also blank.
correct.
And then, Tom, did you want to?
Let alone, I understand the conditional use permit and still be in storage. But when I'm looking at these two site plan operation checklists, if we vote in favor of this tonight, we're also increasing the number of buildings by 4, 5, 6 buildings, where the previous site plan had 2 buildings being 50 by 240 and 35 by 240. And I do understand it says phase 1 down there. We never saw phase 2. But the site plan and plan of operation before us tonight is for 2, 4, 8 buildings. So there is a substantial change in the site plan and plan of operation. Just,
That's why I'm going back,
Absolutely
Tom,
correct.
about, it standing on its own merits and coming through as a brand-new applicant, because there are,
I would,
and number 26 says expansion of existing operation. What existing operation are they expanding?
Yeah, I don't think
It
that
says yes.
existing operation is really correct. But I would just say that what I said is the same thing that Mr. Gabriel is saying.
Right.
There's a substantial modification here. It's exactly the reason that we're here considering this site plan of operation.
We don't have materials, examples of materials that are going to be utilized. The landscape plan, there was one previously sort of submitted with the previous one, which are we utilizing that landscape plan in our decision here, or?
I think there was a new one, I believe Lexi should have, I didn't bring, everything I sent for like the new, I was kind of back and forth with Lexi on what we needed or whatever, and I think I submitted the information through Brame.
There was quite a bit of conversation too from the initial meeting when the original owner of that property was proposing the high-end condos for sale or lease with covenants, that sort of thing. There was quite a bit of conversation there. That if this was on its own merit, I think it's worth discussing again. And at that time, even with the notes we have here, there wasn't there was already a substantial change from the original conditional use permit when they came back the second time. So there was one, then there was a second, so this in effect would be a third. That's why I think, not to create any headaches for you, but I think that with the substantial changes in new ownership, it should stand on its own merit, and we should be given.
I'm not sure I understand what you mean by stand on its own merit. Again,
Because we're going back to-
the process in our ordinance for site plan of operation is if there's a substantial modification, it has to go through the entire process, just the same as the first. So stand on its own merit, I'm not sure what that's getting at, because you have to go through this process just the same as if you have a new one. You should be looking at all these items, asking the questions if there's blanks, but there isn't a stand on its own merit. We have a substantial modification. It goes through the same process when we have a substantial modification, and so we should be treating this just like a new site plan that's coming across, and you can ask what things are going to remain the same as far as layout or access or landscaping, but you should be processing this like any other site plan of operation.
Point taken, and perhaps that was a bad choice of words, but I look at it as new ownership, so that would have probably been better words to use, as new ownership with new ideas. He's not even sure he wants to do an HOA or covenant, so that's where I was going. Bad choice of
I'm sorry, I'm not doing this is, when I said HOA, I was referring to the previous owner. I didn't know how if he was doing
Okay.
like an HOA, or, because he was going to be selling units, and then I would imagine he would have to still charge a monthly fee for the common space or whatever. What I've proposed is just a standard storage facility that I would build just like the other 10 that I have, where I build a building, each unit is leased out, there's a monthly fee, there is no common space for people to gather. I think the previous owner had like a clubhouse and things like that, so I eliminated that stuff, yeah. So that's what I was referring to with the HOA, so I hope that didn't
So-
confuse anybody.
So the first question that I had asked and clarified with the developer was to make clear that we are not dealing with a condominium development. We're not going to see a condo plat. We're not going to see declaration documents. We're not going to see covenants in that regard, because
Correct.
he's not doing a condominium development. This would be similar to some of the other storage unit developments that we have. Still certainly have components, all of these components of the site plan of operation. His operation, though, will not be as a condominium. He will not be developing this the way that the previous owner had said he would.
You also, on your application, or the operation checklist, said
Yep.
that there would be no chemicals, hazardous waste, solvents, gasoline, or other petroleum products stored at the property.
Correct.
So do you have leases with the tenants verifying that they will not be storing?
Yeah, so every tenant would sign my stuff at storage lease, which I did not bring a copy, but I can definitely forward a copy to you guys. But yes, there, every out of the 2,000 storage units that I own, yes, there's a lease that every tenant would sign. Like anything, everybody's going to sign that lease. You can't have gas stored, you can't have chemicals, you can't have bombs, whatever. Whether if somebody puts a gas can in there, I mean, it's hard. Again, but no different than any other storage unit in this town. It's going to be hard to, per se, regulate if somebody put a gas can in their storage unit. But yes, I can get you a copy of my contracts that I have. Most all of that stuff is done online through a processing system. So a lot of it is all, people rent storage units online and things like that. So
you have a question, Tom, or are you formulating?
Well, what we're not seeing in here are any colors or exterior elevations or anything. I mean, I see on the site plan, metal building. Well, what are we looking at? I would agree with Lori that we probably need to see a complete site plan, plan of operations, show us the colors of the roof, show us the colors of the walls, show us where the paving's gonna be, where the paving's gonna stop, show us a landscape plan. I don't think any of us here are saying you can't do storage units. I think all of us here just want to make sure that when the storage units are completed, that we're all on the same page, and we don't know what that page is right now. We don't even know what color's going up when it just says metal pole barn.
Was there a color, when I had sent that, like, was it colored? Did it just not print out color?
You sent me them in color, but the documents I was provided were in black and white.
Okay, that's where, so, because I'm looking at black and white too.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
and like Lori said before, the landscape design plan, are we following the same one, or is there a new one? Where's the paving going to start and stop, just so we're all on the same page? I believe that the storage units are fine to go up there. I don't think any of us is saying that we're not going to approve a conditional use permit for you because it carried with the property. We just want to make sure that what goes up, what's on the
I know
drawings
you were
that we're
asking
given.
for substantial screening along Highway 13. Substantial screening.
Because this is not a normal, granted, they were given a conditional use permit, but there was discussion as far as this would be the first time we'd be allowing storage buildings in the Gateway District, and we wanted substantial screening from that.
So what I saw in what I had here today didn't show me substantial screening at all for landscape.
So we could put some of those things on there tonight, or we'd have them come back with more, because there are blank boxes on the application and the prior one that we don't have answers to, that I think, you could probably answer them here tonight, and we could put them in the findings of facts to speed the process up, but
I think we need to see material, as Tom said. I think we need to see colors before we can go to the next step.
I do believe and again, I don't have it, but on the landscaping plan, was everything broken down on stuff, Lexi, with what Nicolette put on there for like kinds of trees and things like that? I guess
there were, I think, oh no, wait a minute.
I guess for me, at the end of the day, if you guys tell me concrete has to go to the start of my building, or, I guess for me, you just gotta tell me what you want, so I can, that's what we'll do, I guess. So if there's an ordinance that says the concrete has to go 50 feet onto my property, I'll put it 50 feet. If it's gotta go, so if your ordinance says that, I will take care of that. If that has to be said, or however it's gotta go, I have no problem. To this point, I guess what I'm waiting on is kind of like, yep, this is going to be able to go, so then I can start I can work with Joyce, that I can get my erosion control plan. All that stuff takes a few months to get stuff going, so I can finalize with the DNR, the erosion control and all that stuff, kind of start moving the needle going. Same on the buildings, aesthetic-wise, that can be changed anytime, but the actual building itself, are the sizes, everything, is everything on the sizing and things like that okay, where I could commence getting my state approvals and things like that? Whether you want 50% stone, or you want, metal here, whatever, ain't gonna change a state approval plan, but dimensions, things like that would have an effect on my state approvals, but, whether you guys want a certain color or something is irrelevant to a state planning, so I guess I'm looking for, if there's something in specific that I need to add, I'm more than happy to add it, or I can definitely bring something back, but for me, it's more, yes, you're fine with the buildings, we're fine with it, to where I can start the process of erosion control and all that things, and I can have more detailed information on that from Joe Eichstead and things of that sort, just like on my other projects.
Do we get elevations on this?
We normally,
Yeah, 16 feet, 12 feet, 12 feet.
yeah.
Pitch roof?
2 at 16, 2 at 12, and 4 at 12.
Yeah, I do believe I think there's a height restriction or whatever, so
16, 12, and 12.
Yeah.
yeah.
2, 4, 6, so now, the amount of buildings that you're putting on that property has increased, so that's, I feel needs to be given consideration as Commissioner Gabriel pointed out. I don't know if he wanted to give, but he was pointing it out, and it is more buildings than what we originally looked at.
Is this going to all be done at one time?
Right now, I have a project in Marshfield, right on, off of Highway 10 and County Road A. I have about 65,000 square feet going up. I do it all as one shot. I don't try piecemealing it. I just come in and pour on my concrete and just one after the next. I used to do them one at a time, but now I put them all in and go to the next. So I would do it all as one, yeah.
And I guess I'd have to, the comments often made, and no offense, I mean, it's
Yeah.
obviously a good business to be in because people need them, but it's like,
Yeah.
how many more
Yep.
storage units?
And
And I mean, but,
Yeah,
and that was brought up the first two
Yeah.
go-arounds
And
as well.
we're just finishing up about an 80,000 square feet project in Minocqua. You know, a lot of lakes, things like that up there, and about 80% of that project is all RV storage. I can't build them fast enough. We're on our last two buildings, and they're filling up with RVs. So that's this specific one, why most of the buildings are bigger and deeper. Garage doors on one side, not both. It's the ability to have RVs and things like that. You look at Dave Ramsden, a lot of those units are smaller doors. You can't be putting campers, things like that away, so.
And I had read, you want the larger doors on
Larger
there,
stuff,
so you
yep.
can pull in motorhomes or
Yeah,
travel
the bigger
trailers.
stuff, yep, for sure,
Kinda like the boat barn.
yep.
Yep. Lexi?
Okay, so I was giving the black and white versions in like the official submitted application to me, but I do have some colored versions of these pictures from previous communications. If you guys do want to see those, it's up to you though.
Yeah, you can, I guess, I wouldn't mind seeing them. If you want to show us with your can she show us with her laptop?
Sure.
or-
Put it in
We've
middle by
passed the
chair.
laptop around before. Other people used to do it as well, former administrator.
Squeezing. So there's like, this would be like kind of the color schemes, the first one.
There'd be quite a bit more landscaping on the frontage road, though, that's for sure.
That's where I was coming from.
Yeah. And still a monument sign that you'd be using.
Um, I also, as far as lighting goes on the buildings, these would be spots or LEDs, or do we have any kind of lighting schematic that was provided?
Almost all lighting is all LED. Almost everything is always facing down.
Lighting.
We built a facility in Plover off of Plover Road. And, you know, that was something with residential in the area, all of our lighting had to be facing down and stuff. But in regard, you know, same thing, in regards to spacing, the electricians kind of know, you know, what lights, the spread of the lighting and things like that. Again, if there was if there is a recommendation that I have to have a light every 50 feet or something, whatever needs to be done, I can surely do that. Otherwise, a lot of that stuff is kind of based on the master electricians and the lights that are being used, I guess, on.
So you're going to be doing wall lighting and no, like, standard light?
No,
Tip-
it's all attached to the building.
It's all
Yeah,
attached to the
typically,
building?
all the lighting would go, you know, just ballparking it, every 4 to 5 units, you'd have an LED light in between the doors facing down. And then at most of my facilities, I do lighting, usually on the gables, especially like coming into a parking lot, I try to have like a gable light or something, you know, just for visibility. Most everything is on either motion sensors, so once you drive in there, lights will click on. There is, I do have some facilities that I do keep certain lights on that are on as soon as it gets dark, they automatically turn on and stay on. I guess this being on a highway, that would probably be, I would imagine could be acceptable, at least like maybe gable lights, but otherwise they can all be motion sensor stuff.
Well, it says here mounted on the building, front and side facing 13.
Yep, on the gables.
Side facing 13.
Yep.
Outdoor lighting, but normally our site plan of operations need a landscaping plan and a lighting plan. Did he submit the lighting plan other than what's written here?
Well, there's the photo of it. One of the photos is kind of difficult to see because it's in black and white, but there
The
is.
lighting is on there?
Yes.
Okay.
And you haven't done anything with the stormwater retention or anything like that until you know?
Yeah, it makes a difference, like if there was less buildings or if the buildings were modified, because everything is based on square footage and areas of parking and things like that. So, that is all worked on once I kind of know what the site plan, once I know something is approved at least on a site plan and everybody's okay with that, then I would commence. It's usually about a 60 to a 90-day process from the time he starts to the time the DNR gets me my final approval on what I need for the erosion and stuff. So, and I can't, there's no building permits or anything could even be talked about until I have an erosion plan. But it just, if there was a reason I couldn't have 8 buildings and I had to have 6 because, I would need to know that before I start working on it, because it would completely change the erosion side of it. I think most of the buildings, they are lined up, they go straight back. It's kind of a skinnier lot, it kind of front to back. So, buildings are not, jossed around necessarily left and right to make, they're kind of what you see in the front, it's, parallel all the way back. So it's, whether it's 1, 2, 3, or 4, they kind of line all up, going to the west there, so.
I do recall in that November meeting that there was, I had a question, and I don't know if it was ever answered, with regard to the site plan itself, the drawing that was provided. And I believe our ordinance is 1 inch should be 100 feet with regard to these. And this one, as well as the one previously supplied, was 1 inch equals 50 feet.
Okay.
And was that ever resolved, or, because I know that one of the site plans was postponed until we got some of these issues resolved, and I don't know if that was ever.
I don't think Lexi was here at the time, so
No,
Nick's
she
gonna have to
wasn't.
recall for us.
And I don't recall that was ever resolved. I do remember postponing it. My recollection from the postponing it was that that you didn't have all of the information that you needed to feel comfortable with approving the site plan of operation.
I think that, were there setback issues as well? Do anybody recall on that?
Was not here with that one.
What's 8 acres, so that would be. Just talking with
Is there anyone in the audience that has any comments that they would like to make, either for or, yes, if you, yes, please, and your name and your address.
My name is Leo J. Sauter. I own the property next door. My home address is Fawn Court, 1831 Montello. I own the MPB building business, and I got an office there I rent it out. And I sold that to Dean, I don't know, year and a half, 2 years ago, something like that. Anyway, and Dean, I was here, Dean went through quite a process. He wanted, the front had to be real attractive, similar to my building. It had to have a lot of masonry on it and a porch on it. And that's the only concern, one concern I got. The front wanted to look nice. And the other concern was he had a problem with water runoff study. He was running the buildings the wrong way. We finally come up to say that we had to take the water to the south with a big drainage to the west. I don't know if your drainage guys can figure that out, you know, based on your square footage and how much concrete you got. The other concern that Dean never, I don't know, if I can't find a recording, that's a mutual driveway, shared driveway. That's something we got to figure out how that driveway is going to work. And I don't know how he related to you when he sold it or what the deal was. So there's the only concern I got. I got no objection to storage building. I'll probably be a competitor where we got plans to build them in the back too. There'll be large ones. So I guess competitors get along. I'm a builder, I can help you. But,
Built some of my buildings already, so.
yeah, you bought some,
Yep.
yeah, up on the hill there.
know.
They were simple little ones.
Yep.
But I'm only concerned that the front looks nice like Dean had. You know, I gotta have stone on mine, nice landscaping out in front. I got more landscaping going in. And the water runoff study, I'm sure they're gonna have to get the right one done in order to get it approved. And the driveway is my big concern right now, how we're gonna handle that. He'll have more traffic than me. Who pays for snow removal? Who takes care of the gravel or pavement or what, you know? So that's one concern I got. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Whose
Oh, go ahead.
property is the driveway on?
Far as I know, it was shared.
But wasn't that one piece of
It
property?
was 2 lots,
It was 2 lots when you originally owned it.
correct.
So you sold one of the 2 lots and the driveway never changed its position?
No. Dean was gonna get it in the abstract, but I probably own half the driveway to the north right now.
I just was wondering, you said it was 2 lots. I didn't know if that was ever subdivided
Yeah.
or not. It was bought as 2 lots. You merely sold off a lot. Your approach on 13 was there when you bought the 2 lots.
Correct.
Thank you, Leo.
So it does say that there's an easement, or we were
I said
provide.
that earlier, that there was an
Right.
easement on there, yeah.
Yeah,
And the water runoff and that I think is something to keep in mind too, depending on how far back or how many buildings would be approved. But I'll save the rest of my questions and that for discussion.
Diane, we did have a hand up.
yes, if you would like, and your name and address, please?
My name, can you hear me?
Oh.
Can you hear me? My name is Linda Gehrig. My address is 1163 Anawa Court. I have a question. Is this on the south side of Anawa Court?
It's on the south side
Outside
of
of
the
Anawa
building.
Court.
It currently has MPP Builders and Timeless Treasures in it.
That's, okay, so if he's
When in
gonna,
Rome,
so if he's going to build, that's gonna be in my backyard if he goes back, because that property goes all the way just past my house, well, actually, in line with my property. Okay, so I'm gonna have, if he goes back in that area for these, storage units, I'm gonna have storage units in the back, and in the front of my house, I'm having what you approved of, luxury cabins. So I'm gonna be surrounded by both these things. No wonder I got this letter. I was trying to figure out where they're gonna build this stuff, you know, so now I know. So I got stuff in the front and now I'll have it in the back, huh? Not that I'm complaining. I just needed to know where this was gonna be, you know, okay.
I understand.
Okay. Are there any other questions for Shane or or anyone else? Okay, then we'll move on to the next item. Consideration of proposed amendment to Chapter 360 zoning, Article 17, Rome Town Center District, Sections 360-81.1C, 360-81.2C, 360-81.3C, 360-81.4C, and 360-81.5C regarding unification of dimensional area and other requirements, form-based non-use controls in Rome Town Center subdistricts, Commercial A, Subdistrict, Mixed Town Center Subdistrict, Senior Living Subdistrict, Mixed Multifamily Subdistrict, and Mixed Commercial Light Industrial Subdistrict.
During the November 22nd Rome Town Center Subcommittee meeting, it was made a recommendation from the committee to the Plan Commission to consider the current zoning within the Rome Town Center, specifically surrounding the non-use controls, leading to possible rezoning the Rome Town Center. This would help to achieve more uniform RTC and would align with the 15 recommendations from land use specialist Sam Schultz. During the December 10th Plan Commission meeting, this was set for a public hearing. This item looks at all of the districts within the Rome Town Center and aims to unify the non-use controls for consistency throughout the Rome Town Center. And then I have given you each at your table a list of all the non-use controls, a table so you can kind of see as we go, as Nick goes through the changes, I'm assuming.
Is this the same one that you sent to?
Yes.
Okay.
And it is the same ordinance that you reviewed last time, so I won't go through every single one of them unless you have something specific that you'd like to point out.
Would you like to do a little bit of clarification for the public hearing?
I certainly can. We had reviewed this as a Plan Commission last meeting. Just a general note, and I think Lexi did a good setup to it. The subcommittee has been reviewing a number of different things. One of those is related to Sam Schultz's recommendations. His recommendations were to unify the non-use controls, and that's what this is doing. It's making the non-use controls, otherwise known as form-based controls, and sometimes they're called that, they're synonymous. It's making those consistent throughout the sub-districts. Beyond that, that's all it's doing. The only one, or the only exception to that would be the housing. Some of the housing restrictions as far as density have not been touched. Those are specific to the districts that, or sub-districts, sorry, that pertain to housing. Those have not been touched, with the idea that at some point, just a general note, you will be likely doing a significant go-through of the zoning ordinance and update in that regard. And so this makes it consistent across the sub-districts, with the idea that likely Rome Town Center will be just the same, with that district as the other districts when you do go through your full zoning ordinance review and update.
Is there anyone here that would like to speak to this issue, for or against, or? Okay.
Are we having discussion on it?
The second part.
We'll do that after we close the
Okay,
public hearing.
that's fine.
There's no one here that would like to address it. Okay. Then we will move on to,
I'll make a motion that
sorry.
we close the public hearing.
okay,
I believe we're finished.
yeah, we're done.
I'll second.
Okay, Bill made a motion to close the public hearing. Lori has seconded it. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The public hearing is closed. Discuss and possible action on the following items. Approval of the December 10th, 2024 meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the December 10th, 2024 meeting minutes.
I'll second the motion.
Motion's been made by Tom, seconded by Bill, to approve the December 10th, 2024 minutes. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 11, discussion and possible recommendation to town board, consideration of an amendment to the site plan and plan of operation requested by Stuffit Storage LLC to update their site plan from the previous owner's plan on property located at State Highway 13, described as Lot 2 of CSM 2313, located in part of Southeast 1/4, Northwest 1/4, Section 17, Town 20 North, Range 6 East, Town of Rome, Adams County, Wisconsin, with a parcel number of 0300079000000. Do I have a motion?
Well, for purposes of discussion, I'll make a motion that we approve plan of operation that's been submitted tonight for sake of discussion.
I'll second that for sake of discussion.
For recommendation to the town board?
For recommendation
approval?
to town board.
Okay. We have a motion by Bill, a second by Tom, to make a recommendation to the town board to approve the site plan of operation requested by Stuffit Storage LLC. Discussion.
I guess I have two issues. One is the addition of two structures that weren't original. We had, was it four? We had four, and then now it's doubled.
Yes.
And so I'm not sure what the total number of storage units are. I never counted them up. Do you know what it is off the top of your head?
8 buildings, but I believe my last submittal was 8 buildings, correct? So when you say is that from Dean's proposal? That was a phase, yeah, so I've always submitted 8 buildings.
Okay.
But Dean's original one was 2 buildings, phase 1. I'm not sure what he had scheduled for phase 2 or 3. I was not a part of those meetings, I guess.
So what's the total number of units that is being proposed for the property? Storage
I don't have
units.
the units off the top of my head, but 8 buildings. 8 buildings.
Well, yeah, I know. That's,
Do you have some idea of how many units per building? Based on their size? Sorry, we probably just figured you'd know that because you have so many, yeah.
Yeah.
How many you're gonna fit in there?
So, out of 204, there's probably 20, 40, 60, 80. You could say, give or take, 160 units, about 20 units per building, give or take. It'll be 160 units.
160.
and then I would prefer to see much more substantial landscaping on the front than what was being proposed.
I would
More of a screening type.
I would agree with you on landscaping. I think we have to look at I call it the front view from Highway 13.
Right.
I think they should have to
The
have
one
some
that-
architectural standards on them, not just metal. And I'm concerned about the existing shared driveway that is currently gravel, of adding this many vehicles and trailers, and what that's gonna do to the gravel coming out
Right.
onto Highway 13. I think those are the three real concerns that at least me and Bill share together. I don't know. She has to call on you. I can't talk to you.
I also don't, I'm also not comfortable with the actual site plan with the setbacks, unless I'm just not seeing it from the side, rear, front lot lines, and the actual setbacks of the building.
What are you showing?
I don't know if it shows up.
I guess my comments would be that the number of units that it's been increased to and not having any indication yet of how that might affect stormwater runoff and the water in the area.
I'm not sure.
And I wasn't necessarily in favor of the original project. You know, we want, people need these obviously, but, you know, do we want that right on Highway 13? But I think some of the information that we've provided is incomplete to the point that it makes it harder for me to make a decision tonight, even though the original CUP was already issued. So if we could have a more filled application with information and what we're actually looking at, would be helpful.
So,
For my three concerns, pavement, landscaping, and view from road.
And Tom, Commissioner Gabriel's right on that, the impervious surface with the water study or whatever he needs to do with the erosion control. Based on the additional buildings, there might be some checkpoints that won't allow him to have that many buildings, and I think maybe we need to know that before we can approve this.
if he didn't get if he got the erosion control and that came out to say he doesn't have the proper impervious surface, that he would not be allowed under, is it DNR?
Approval
He would
for
not
that.
be allowed to build the other buildings.
Correct.
Whether we approve it or not, correct? Okay, Shane, what, you want to come up and,
Yeah. So can I just get, so I have no problem, you know, if there's something that's got to get pushed or what, I guess for me, it's like, when you mention landscaping, you know, when I look at the landscaping plan, and I guess Lexi, I believe my drawing lady tried to follow all the zoning things, so is there not enough landscape? Like, do you want 10 more trees, 50 more trees there? Do we want a fence? I guess for me, it would be very helpful if I was just given, you know, do you want 20 more trees added? I'll add 20 trees. For the concrete, do you want me to have concrete, you know, do I have to have concrete 50 feet from the road going into the property? Do I have to have it, you know, if you want 75 feet, I'll put 75 feet of concrete. So for me, it would be just helpful, tell me what you want, and I'll add it to it, so I can come back to a board meeting. You'll see the concrete, you'll see this, you'll see that. It's just hard for me to, because I, you know, when I was sending stuff back and forth, you know, you're trying to read your landscaping, so if I have everything that meets your zoning, I guess, are you asking me to put more than what the requirement is? If that's what you want, I'll add it. I don't want to necessarily keep coming back here and not having a direction maybe on exactly what you're asking, but if you'd like to see a fence, I will add a fence. And I do, you know, looking at the photos here, I mean, if you got to see the colored photos, you know, there is stone on the bottom 3 feet, and I do have there's overhangs over the windows, the false windows and things like that, so if it's not like it is just steel, there is some other characteristics on them, but if you would like something else added, I guess I would just, is there something you would like added? Would you like more stone? I will change it, so when I come to the next meeting or whatever, you guys can, yep, you added it, yep, you did what I wanted, and everybody's happy, and I'm fine with that. In regards to the, you know, when I reach out for the erosion control, you are correct. If there's too many buildings and there's not enough square footage to get the water to drain, whether it's to a retention pond or something like that, the DNR will just deny and if they deny it, ultimately I can't do it because I don't have an approved erosion control plan. Then I'd have to come back and say, hey, I gotta eliminate 2 buildings, but at the end of the day, you know, I mean, I don't, again, on the zoning, you guys would have to tell me, is there a limit on how many buildings you can put on a property? Or, I mean, I guess I don't, you know, if 8 is okay as long as everything passes, or, you know, I'm just asking.
No, and I think for me personally, if I would say anything, it has to do, if you follow everything that's in our zoning ordinances and build according to that for design standards and architectural designs, that's what we're looking for, whatever's in there. So, and with the Gateway District,
Yeah.
oh, I'm sorry. The
no,
Gateway
you were
District,
hitting
The Gateway District follows certain standards as we do
Yep.
in the RTC, because overall, over the years, boards have decided that they want, this is the cornerstone of the community,
Yeah.
this is an entrance point, and we weren't necessarily anticipating storage units there. On the previous CUP that was approved, there was fencing, and then bushes in front of the fencing, and we don't see that in your pictures, and perhaps that's our fault for not having what we need to look at. So, but I think the other thing is the impervious surface and how many buildings you can actually have, and until we know some of those things, I think if you work closely with Lexi, bring back your landscape, a revised landscaping plan a little bit closer to that original CUP. And then we know the number of actual units based on what you get back from the DNR. But I think that's good. We can't tell you how much concrete you want or need because we don't know until you know that stormwater runoff and what they're gonna permit you to have.
Yeah, I guess I was just, for the concrete, I was just referring to the issue of, is there a, because ideally, is it a requirement to have, to have the whole facility concreted, or, because when you start talking with like the DNR, gravel is gonna have a, it's gonna allow so much water penetration through it and things like that, so, so yeah, I guess for me, it's just, if, even from a fencing, or if that's what that right-of-way needs to have, and you want me to put fencing in, I'll put fencing, whatever I need to do that way, but, I guess I'm just trying to follow whatever that was given, and,
Yes, Nick.
So I would just say a couple of different things. Number one, Commissioner Gabriel was right when he was talking about the entrance and exit, so that's gateway overlay, as Commissioner Jamadi said. Those are concerns that exist because we have standards for the gateway overlay district, and that does need to be paved. The other piece of that is, as your staff is working through some of those design and site plan pieces, definitely look at the commercial A non-use controls specifically, because those items are covered in the commercial A non-use controls.
And I think Lexi can probably deal with, as far as what's required, as far as how far back he needs to pave, because if he's going 200 feet off the frontage, apparently that changed a few years ago. But according to the standards we have, it's supposed to be paved. So it's up to you what materials you would use and what the DNR would require you or tell you can or can't have.
But usually a couple different things that would help, I think, in making the decision here, would be perhaps a paving plan,
Yes.
a landscaping plan. The lighting plan, I think, was largely fleshed out here, but, otherwise that would be a part of this. And then the architectural design elements of it are things that are being mentioned here. All of those things are consistent with some of those gateway overlay and the review that is done at that point.
And I'm wondering if it wouldn't be beneficial if you have some agreement on the easement access on this driveway. I think, can easements be revoked? Can something suddenly go bad and they don't want to, is that something we need to have flushed out? I mean, I know that Dean kind of touched on it and you work closely with Dean. I know you probably would work closely with I'm sorry, I forgot your first name.
Shane, you're good,
Sorry,
yeah,
Shane.
you're fine.
You'd work closely, but I wonder if that also needs to be addressed since you're putting quite an investment in that property, that there's a good understanding, because easements can go bad quickly.
Yep. Yeah, I can get a copy of the easement and stuff that came with that property when I purchased it.
Okay.
And I guess just with what I submitted for landscaping plan and stuff, does that or does that not then fit with in the documentations for that right of way? Does not pass then for what was figured there?
I think it does,
Yeah.
looking at what
Okay.
is drawn here in black and white, and
It
then
doesn't.
we saw the colored pictures, but I think what we're saying to you is we're asking for more.
Okay.
And the reason being is this will allow storage buildings for the first time
Okay.
to be on Highway 13, and we all know how that looks
Yep.
just north of here, and so this will be quite a change, and so we're
Okay.
asking for the original CUP had a fence in there were taller trees. The
Okay.
monument sign still looks like, if you also need to have your sign drawn up, a sign plan.
For the
Permit, yeah.
for the purpose of me being able to maybe start with the erosion control plan is, that's a $4,000 to $5,000 investment for me to get that. So if I start that process, I guess I'm asking is if the DNR comes back and says, yep, we can make this all happen with a ditch here and a retention pond there, whatever, is the ability, for the 8 buildings, because if I spend that money on the existing layout, forget about the look of it for right now, but the layout of it, if they approve it, will it be approved with the amount of buildings? Or, because if you come back and say, well, we want to take 2 buildings off, now it changes my erosion plan. Does that make sense, I guess? So I don't want to, I guess I don't want to, do one thing in front of the other either, so if
We
is
did
that.
hear from one of our residents this evening, and I do understand, as people are moving here and the town grows and the needs grow, she's gonna end up with, she's got a storage building this way, she's got storage buildings that way, and she has a Rome Town Center across the road from her that's developing. So if we understand her concern too, I don't know that I'm in favor of that many more additional buildings, because we know we have so many already that in other areas of the town. But that's just my personal, and it goes, it's, you've revised your plan more than what he was originally proposing, which means they're gonna go quite a ways back. So that's my personal take. You can, someone else can speak to it, but I don't know that I would be in favor of a total of 8 buildings if they approved your DNR permit for your erosion control.
I would prefer to postpone this issue until we get the additional information that we would like to have. Not only the landscaping issue, but the height of what the plantings are going to be, to see, just how much it will be. Not so much blocking the whole business and the whole entity, but just to see, visualize what will be there upon maturity of the plantings. I know we can't ask for the water retention situation.
I mean, Nick and Lexi, would he need another public hearing to come back again for additional consideration, so he doesn't have to, okay, thank you.
I think what I'm hearing is that the gentleman would like some kind of a condition that we are going to proceed one way or the other. If we're going to limit the buildings, he wants to know that tonight,
I am not
so
in
that he can
favor of
proceed forward.
limiting the buildings. I would leave that up to the experts that are going to be determined the impervious. But I would like to at least see the setbacks of all the buildings upon, what the proposal will be from all of the north, south, east, and west.
I think the setbacks would make me more comfortable too. When you say 8 buildings proposed to the original number that we had, you doubled the size. So I think I agree with Diana at that respect, that if you get the stormwater retention and the erosion plan approved by the DNR, and they say you can have that many, I wouldn't be.
Nick?
Maybe just a general suggestion related to that would be, since you did have public comment with concern regarding maybe impact of that on adjacent property, also maybe showing, along with the setbacks, any barrier or buffer that's going to be left there. We do have standards in our ordinance for buffers, particularly buffers to adjacent residential properties.
And there is more than one resident on Anawa Court there, so I think the other resident would feel likely the same way, plus there's a veterinarian office there, so I think that's a good suggestion, thank you.
Lexi, can you refresh my memory? In B1 in the gateway, does the entire property need to be paved, or is it 150 feet in from the lot line? Because he's gonna need some guidance on the paving aspect before he comes back too, so let's. I know it's at least 150 in from the lot line, I believe.
No.
I don't think.
It's 200.
Well, that would be the setback from the center of the road to the front of the building.
That's the paving requirement?
No, is it?
In the Gateway Overlay District, it adopts the Rome Town Center Commercial A non-use controls, and I believe the Commercial A non-use controls has a paving requirement.
Right.
So the entire storage facility would need to be paved. Am I understanding that correctly?
No. So the Gateway Overlay District has the boundary that goes 200 feet, if I recall, from the center of
Center
the road.
line.
That has certain design requirements, paving requirements. So that would have to be paved. This is a deeper lot than that, to be sure, right? So he might have a paving plan that has a portion of it that goes up to the buildings and maybe a little farther paved, and other parts that are gravel, and that may assist a little bit with the stormwater
Right.
and the control plan.
So in front of his units, the entranceway, the apron areas after that 200 feet, it's not required for him to do any additional paving? Is that your understanding? Is that what you're,
Yes, and that would be consistent with how we've treated
okay,
and analyzed the other Gateway Overlay District properties.
okay. So I,
200 feet from the center line of the road or from the lot line?
highway,
Center of the highway, I think it is.
Center of-
Okay, there's your paving requirement. I'm just
Okay.
trying to.
No, no, I appreciate it.
Just trying to narrow it down for you so you can figure it into your budget.
And just to be clear, for we built a new facility in Plover on River Drive a couple years ago. The entire 5 acres is concrete from one side. I mean, they were requiring, some kind of I'm not an asphalt guy. I have my own concrete guy, so I'm a concrete guy. So if concrete was a requirement, the whole thing would be concrete. It would have, if that's not a requirement, if gravel is what is acceptable, that makes all the difference when we work with the DNR and things like that, because concrete's not gonna allow water's all gonna go to a specific point, where gravel might take, 35% of the rainfall and soak it up and things like that. So it all plays into the amount of buildings and, that all plays a part, so. But I appreciate, that's what if 200 feet is what I need to show, then that's what we can show. So that's what I'm looking for.
And I appreciate you paying attention to that. I was trying to find with the original 2 CUPs, I thought they had, because there weren't as many buildings, that the whole thing would be paved, but I'm glad that you're aware of what the DNR will allow you once we get that all figured out. But that's what our ordinances right now require.
Okay. And just last thing here, again, on the site plan too, when we talk about, possibly some, the last buildings probably end, 100 feet, 150 feet before the end of the property line, because there has, kind of like a roundabout there. On the site plan, I do show keeping all the existing trees, and the ability to add, more trees or a fence or something is something that can be added if need be. But on the site plan, it does show to keep as many existing trees and things like that for that buffer area. It is on the site plan, so.
And perhaps you could just keep that in mind too, then moving forward with whatever you do on that side near the residential area.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
maybe, then we look at what you're doing in the front and balance the two for you.
Okay.
do we have the certified survey map in the file, in the property file at all? 2313? Would it not show the easement on that? Or make reference to the easement?
I would have to check and see if there is a certified survey map. I didn't recall seeing it when I was looking, but it might be in there. Some of the property files are not the prettiest, so it could have been tucked away in there.
Would it show the easement on there? Possibly?
It may, again,
Okay.
subject to, as Commissioner Jamadi said, easements can change, right? And so it would somewhat depend on what the easement currently does. I don't know if the current easement, document and boundaries is what it'll show, but you could certainly ask that the zoning administrator provide you the CSM in the next packet, and it may give you better clarity as to where that location is.
If he received title insurance, possibly part of that title insurance would have a copy of the easement in it as well.
Sure would.
So that would be something, if you could provide that to, okay.
This is gonna sound foolish, but is this property impacted by that pathway that is being proposed?
Yes.
'Cause it's going right past it.
Yes, it is.
Are you aware of the pathway that's being proposed across your property? Okay,
Was anybody contacted to give easement for the pathway?
well, there should have been. That's why I'm asking.
My understanding is there were only certain easements that were needed, the rest of it fell in the right of way.
Right away?
Yeah.
So it's not impacted then? That's the answer.
I don't know if this property is impacted. I don't recall this property being one
I
of the
believe
ones.
you're right.
And we did have the specific
It was
properties.
next door, but it didn't, it fit in the right of way, if I'm not mistaken.
That's good.
Thanks. I needed my memory refreshed.
Okay, so any more discussion or questions or anything come to mind? We do have a motion to make the recommendation of the town board to approve.
I think it's hard to send the recommendation to the town board if we don't have some of the missing pieces in place, so. I don't know how, does somebody have a suggestion as to how we?
You can either vote on the motion or you can withdraw your motion,
Withdraw it,
and
yeah.
you would start it at the second and withdraw the
Okay.
second and the first if you chose to do that.
I'll agree to withdraw my motion.
I'll agree to withdraw my second.
Okay, so do we have to make another motion at this point or no? Well, we to just postpone it.
Yeah,
To
you-
move-
You can just have the minutes reflect that the item will be postponed until the next meeting, if that's what your wishes are to do.
Is that our wishes?
Yes, and that
Yeah.
gives
And that-
Lexi and Shane an opportunity to work together and get the pieces he needs, yet that gives him another month to get those pieces in order and bring those forward. They know what we need.
Okay. Then we shall move on to the next item on the agenda.
Thank you, Shane.
Thank you.
Yep.
Number 12, discussion and possible recommendation to town board, consideration of proposed amendments to Chapter 360 zoning, Article 17, Rome Town Center District, Sections 360-81.1C, 360-81.2C, 360-81.3C, 360-81.4C, and 360-81.5C regarding unification of dimensional area and other requirements, form-based non-use controls in Rome Town Center subdistricts, Commercial A subdistrict, Mixed Town Center subdistrict, Senior Living.
Does Lexi have something?
I'll make a motion that we send this item with our approval to the town board for changing the,
I'll second it for discussion.
Okay, there's a motion by Bill and a second by Tom to make a recommendation to the town board to approve the amendments to the Chapter 360 zoning as referenced in the agenda.
Well, if we're gonna start making changes, there's one other very important change that has to be made due to a few words, which has caused us some issues in the Rome Town Center before. It's item number 5 under 360.81.2, item number 5, where it says architectural standards would be the second sentence and like the fifth sentence, where it says at least 50% of the street and entry. I think we need to add the word all in there.
Just a minute.
Can you please give us the page number, Tom?
Page 4.
Because they all have our, so we need the specific page. number.
Okay, so page 4, architectural standards,
Second sentence
at
word
least 50%, okay?
of all street and entry. And then if we go down to the second line from the end of that page, it would be, metal siding should be allowed as an acceptable quality material for all elevations except the 50% approved street/entry. We need to add the word in there as "and" because that's where the confusion came before. They're reading it as street or entry. This was wrote to have street and
so
entry.
the
and
slash
they-
should be changed to the word "and."
Correct. And that would take out some confusion that we had in another situation in Commercial A. It's not street or entry, it's street and entry areas as required above.
Can you please go back to the other sentence? When you say at least 50% of the street and entry, because then those two sentences would match.
Right,
Like you're
that's,
saying, but what do you, when you said add the word all,
I did say add the word all. You
but
can-
all,
You can eliminate the word all, I can be but we have to get the word and down at the bottom, street and.
So it's
So if we just
consistent.
Do the slash,
yes,
Get rid of the slash and put and.
and that
Because it-
accomplishes it.
I agree with that one,
Because
because we,
Entry can also be the side, well, take my building, for instance. I had an entry that was a parking lot, what didn't face the street, okay? And I also had a street on Matterhorn and Highway 13. So I just like to see this section become, so that nobody in the office in here can misinterpret it on another project. And that's where the misinterpretation came in, because people like to put or with the slash. It should be and.
I could see adding the word, though, if you read,
I'm sorry. I was
No,
going
that's
to call on
okay.
Nick.
oh, I'm sorry. Call on Nick first, maybe he'll answer my question.
No, I just want to make sure, so part of the reason that we're doing this is to have consistent language throughout, so would that also then be a recommendation, for example, on page 9, to also do the street slash, turn that into street and entry?
9 where,
Page 9, under
Architectural
We would
standards.
Yeah, so
change it
in other
into
words, we have that,
architect-
we have similar language in a number of these districts.
district.
And would I,
District, yeah.
would I be making that change in all
I
of the
think
districts?
we need
Yes.
to put the word and wherever there's a slash mark, like it starts out.
Yep.
In the beginning, and then it drops the and throughout the rest of the Rome Town Center.
Sure.
So there's no confusion.
But let's go back to his question about the all, though. When we say at least 50% of the street and entry, there's an interpretation of what street and what entry. What clarifies that further? What's a street and what's an entry? I mean,
If,
when you say all, does that really help solve the problem? What other word?
Well, all is certainly making it applicable to every street-facing side. That's what you're
I-
doing
then
with
maybe
it.
front, back, or side, if there's a street there, it's a street.
I think the all word then might be beneficial to us to have the word all in there.
And then, since I think that would alleviate some of the confusion that came in with some buildings. If we go back to, page 3, other requirements, we'll go to B. Except,
Which B?
14B, I'm sorry, 4B.
Is that accessory building?
Yeah, the height.
So you,
No. Oh, yes, you're right.
It's
Maximum.
redlined and it's
it's the red lines there.
Yeah, got it.
So I'm just trying to understand how we're flip-flopping so much on this, that there was already recommendations to have an accessory building not to be bigger than 50% of the primary structure, which you 3 voted down, and now we're looking at not having any requirements on accessory building except for architectural standards. So your accessory building can be larger than your main building with how this is now, where, I mean, you all know what I went through with an accessory building.
Let's
And
just-
this doesn't make sense now not to
It
have any
does.
requirements on it.
It does, it still has the, I guess
still
I would
have
like Nick to
ordinances.
speak to it, but the only thing that changed there is that it was added for the accessory building in commercial A to make it consistent with mixed town centers, senior living, mixed multifamily, mixed commercial, and light industrial. It's the only one that was missing that. So we're making it consistent with all the other ones on that exact same line on the chart.
But what changed in the last 60 days to make this consistent? Because I tried accessory building with you 3 for 18 months, and it was not acceptable. And now you let people build any size accessory building they want with no limits on, except for height, on size or width, and it can be bigger than your primary structure, because it doesn't give you any, I mean, Jerry made a motion to make it less than 50% of the primary building in size, which some of us thought was reasonable. Now we don't even have 50% less than the primary building,
Did we change? We're not changing that. I don't know what, I'm sorry.
But you're not putting any requirements on accessory building
Isn't there
now
an
in
ordinance
commercial
with
A.
regard to accessory buildings?
There's a,
I think what's being referenced was the motion that was made during the approval of a site plan of operation. It was never in the ordinance. And I think the idea here was to carry through consistent language. So it's not that you couldn't put what you're asking for, Commissioner Gabriel, but then we'd put it on all of the districts. I think the only thing that's happening here is a carryover of those non-use controls over every sub-district.
we're not changing anything else, but adding 24, so they're all consistent.
But the way it is now, accessory buildings height maximum 24 feet, architecturals such as cupolas, blah-de-blah. We're not giving any size restriction that a new business could come in there. They could build a very small primary business building and then turn around and put up a 60 by 90 accessory building. We have nothing that says that it has to be less than 50% of the primary structure or anything, which I'm a little bit concerned about of what we're opening the Pandora's box for. That somebody could build a very small business building and build a huge storage building. It just doesn't make sense to have it worded that way in this ordinance when you folks are so against any accessory building commercial A for the last 18 months. I'm just mind boggled. So,
Are we addressing anything here other than just what here, the form-based non-use controls and standardizing them? So, and there were so few of them? Is that, that was one of the discussions that we had at the their CDA members there and plan commissioners. We found that the form-based non-use controls, building setbacks, building height, have all been unified now to make it simpler, and there wasn't even that many of them. So you're getting into something that we haven't touched yet. But I think you have agreement with us here that we can change this language that will help all around, because several people had issues with this. But we didn't get into the use controls or standards. We're unifying non-use controls. And in the area regarding accessory buildings, it's 24 feet. Madam Chair, I would ask that you would call the question, please. We have a motion and a second. I would ask that you call the question.
so you're
Do we have,
stopping discussion then, is what I'm understanding.
Lexi,
I guess one general comment I'll have to say is something with the subcommittee that I guess one overarching goal that I've noticed is one thing I think we're trying to achieve is putting a lot of power with Rome Town Center and these businesses coming through is giving more power to Plan Commission with these site plans coming through. So yeah, there's not a whole lot of standards on that, but the hope is when we have site plans coming through, you guys are going to be looking at these site plans. If someone is coming through with a garage that's ridiculous, you're going to sit there and you're going to see a garage that's ridiculous saying, no, that's ridiculous.
But
Hopefully.
that's not how this operates, okay? It operates on personal feelings on a lot of the time, okay?
No, it
In
does
person-
not, and I don't want to be accused of that. It was based on our ordinances and the way they were interpreted at the time, and I asked that we call the question.
I would like to look at something first.
I'm saying
Nick has got a
if
comment,
you're
please.
allowing accessory buildings now in commercial A, because I'm looking at under commercial A, I don't think we should change it to the red type. I think that we should at least add, has to be less than 50% of the primary structure, which seems to be a reasonable thing. We don't want garages in commercial A bigger than the primary structure of a building.
And we do state that, based on the size and the setbacks here, but, you know, changes would be easier to discuss if you'd stop slamming people, and I would
And
appreciate it
changes would
that
be
we
easier
move
to
forward.
discuss if I would have been put on the
Okay.
subcommittee too. This wouldn't be discussed here. You want to slam people. You guys
All
slammed me
right,
for 18
I'm going
months
to, we're gonna take
on an
a
accessory
little-
building.
Take
I
a
want to
break.
recess, please.
We're gonna take a break till everybody can just kind of focus on what we want to get done here.
Yeah, accomplish good.
Everyone,
Yeah,
well-
accomplish good.
I do want to look up a couple of things. So we're taking a break, a 5-minute break, please. Call the meeting back to order.
I have a question for Nick.
Go ahead.
The agenda item that we have before us this evening is to take only certain action, is that correct? So even if we make that slight modification originally requested by Commissioner Gabriel, going beyond that is outside the scope of what we're discussing here?
Well, so as we've had in the past, where you have a public hearing and the discussion comes from that, and there are some adjustments to make like you're doing here, that's totally appropriate, and you would just make that part of your recommendation if you made the recommendation to the board to approve it. And so, right now you have a motion that just recommends it as it is. Just a general reminder, and I think it's probably what's being asked here, a housekeeping matter, you will have to amend that motion in the event that you choose to recommend that with the adjustments.
Make those adjustments to the advisory,
Are
the accessories, or the, excuse me, architectural standards.
Bill?
are accessory buildings regulated anywhere else in our ordinances that speak to what Commissioner Gabriel is asking?
Technically, accessory uses are that it can't go before the principal use. To Lexi's point, yes, there might be some regulation here, but as a general note, I think what I'm hearing is the desire to have some consistent baselines, which is what that would be. Now, just again, a reminder that the way this came forward was just to carry through those items as they exist, between certain sub-districts and not in others, and just unify them throughout. That doesn't mean that you can't put a note in there that limits the size of the accessory structure to a percentage. It would be the baseline that you would be operating with going forward. If you did that, then you would want to carry that through to all the sub-districts, because that's the whole point of what you're doing here when you unify the non-use controls. What's being suggested is an additional non-use control that doesn't exist in any other sub-district currently.
That's okay. That's what I was asking.
So can you just repeat your last sentence again for us, please, Nick?
What was brought up about limiting the size of the accessory structure is what would be called a non-use control, right?
Right.
And it's a non-use control that isn't in the other sub-districts, and so my only thought would be, if you add it, you certainly can. It would be a baseline that everybody operates. You just saw somebody today come in and ask for some of those baseline pieces so they know how to develop. So, there is some value to having those things in there. I'm just saying the whole purpose of this is to unify those. So if you are considering putting that in a sub-district, you might consider putting it in all of them in the same way that we just had the conversation about putting some adjustment to the language to clarify that across the other sub-districts. That's all.
Thank you. Is there actual language to propose? Is there actual language to propose would be my question then, versus going down a path that's unnecessary?
So I did my best to try to scribe as I was hearing it. It might say something along the lines of, accessory buildings may be no larger than 50% of the principal structure, or the size of the principal structure, sorry. That's just a starting point.
We do have a minimum, though, correct, with regard to accessory
Yep.
buildings?
Yes.
You can't, their accessory structures are not allowed less than 150 square feet, I believe, is what it says. I was looking for it.
Don't they still have to be 24 feet wide, or am I mistaken on that, Bill?
I think the 24 feet wide, I think, is in other districts that we have. And I don't know that 24-foot
Not in
wide is in the Rome Town Center.
Town Center didn't have that, but other districts do.
Yeah.
It does
This is-
exist as a minimum in other districts.
This is in the Rome Town Center that we're trying to unify right now. We're not going outside of that.
Not right now.
No, not right now. But it may be considered in future. But right now, we're just trying to standardize this with the few common issues that weren't unified.
Okay, so,
Let me ask the other, do you two have a problem with his proposal to add that accessory structures be no larger than 50% of the primary?
I think I'm sorry, you go first.
my question would be, if we do that, that would be more of a significant alteration to the public hearing? And we would have to come back for a public hearing at some point with regard to, if we were to do that kind of a modification?
I think there's other impacts that
What does significant mean?
That's the other question I have.
Usually when you make large adjustments, then you do set it for another public hearing. It would just mean that you have it on the next meeting as a public hearing, and you put it on the following town board meeting as a potential action item. Not unlike what you're doing right now, right? It's on the town board meeting. It would just be postponed at the town board meeting until it can go through the public hearing on this one.
No, we would move this forward the way we would with the few changes that we discussed, but beyond that, outside of that, could be a separate public hearing.
Well, sure, yes, you could. If the motion carried, you would, because again, right now the motion is to recommend approval as is, not even with the adjustments at all that were, so if you all voted to approve that, sure. Or you could set it on the next plan commission with the adjustment, have the public hearing, and make the recommendation all as one time. It would be up to you all as the plan commission.
I would just state that as the fact that we've been approved to have donated services with a master planner, this is one of the more simple things that we had on our list of things to do based on the recommendations we got from the land use planner that we have an agreement with. So this isn't outside the scope of what we were given, tasked with, and this is very simple. Other things are going to go beyond the sub-districts outside of the RTC. I would prefer that we keep it simple and keep constructive work moving forward that's positive for everybody.
Okay, there is a motion by Bill and a second by Tom to recommend the ordinance changes be sent to the town board with approval by the plan commission, or for approval. Did we want to make an amendment to that with regard to the additional language that Tom had proposed?
I'd be willing to amend my original motion to include the issue of changing the slash to an and in the appropriate places.
And adding the word all, because that was,
No, I think Tom just agreed that he didn't feel he needed it, or
I'm fine either way, but I definitely think when we have street/entry throughout the Rome Town Center, we definitely need to change
we
that
need
to
to
and. And
so
now
that they're
we're
both
interpreting
included.
it.
But I do believe the addition of the word all might be very helpful to everyone, because I recall that being a comment that we received back from the people on staff at the time, that they weren't considering one a street entrance. So I think the word
Then-
all would be helpful.
Then I would include
But I would
that in my
ask Nick to
motion.
just,
I would include that in my motion to have. the
Where would
original
all go in the
all
sentence?
also.
It would go at least 50% of all
Street
street and entry
Right.
areas. And
Correct.
Get rid of the word the, or the, however you want to say it.
of all street and entry area elevations, that is correct, because that was a bone of
fine.
contention at that time, as well as the slash.
And that would be a change on page 4, and it would be a change on page 9.
Or 9. Or 9.
I would have been my second.
Okay, we have a motion by Bill, a second by Tom, to recommend to the town board to approve the proposed amendments to Chapter 360 with the changes to the architectural standards provision on page 4 and on page 9, in at least 50% of all street and entry area elevations, and on The penultimate sentence of that same paragraph would read, rather than street/entry, it would be street and entry. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, moving on to the next item, discussion and possible referral to future agenda, review of town ordinance requirements for road frontage in the B1 Business District, Chapter 360, Article 16, and consideration of impacts for allowing access of lots to public streets by means, easement, to Code Chapter 360 zoning and Chapter 326 subdivision of land with review of staff findings.
During the December 10th, 2024 Plan Commission meeting, a citizen comment was received by Glenn Murray asking for consideration of a change to the zoning ordinance 360-79A1 height, setbacks, area, and other requirements so it would match what the county has. Specifically, the request asked for the ordinance language to read, frontage minimum 100 feet or 66 feet of access easement. The Plan Commission referred this item to this January meeting and requested a staff report of additional information on the implications on such an ordinance amendment. So that has been included in your packets tonight.
Okay, should we have Lexi go over this staff report that she's prepared here? Give us your findings with regard to the request?
Yeah, sure. If that's what you'd like. Of course, I can read this in. So my summary, I guess I'll just kind of read this in as I have it. So, as I basically read, Glenn Murray requested an ordinance change to be made to change the frontage requirements for the B1 Business District to change the current requirement that is stated in 360-79A1. I gave you that ordinance in my pile of ordinances I was handing you at the beginning of the meetings.
Before you go, then let's just
Yes, sorry.
check that one out.
Yep, I gave you all three ordinances I'm referencing in this. So, I also gave you the purpose ordinance for our land division. So, those are the three different ordinances I handed you in the beginning and then just a little bit ago. So,
Okay.
I guess I should have started with that, my bad.
One. Okay, so currently in our ordinance, it does say the frontage minimum 100 feet. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So that currently says frontage minimum 100 feet. And he would like that to be changed to frontage minimum 100 feet or 66 feet of access easement. So this would in turn have the ability to create no frontage or landlocked parcels served only by an access easement, which goes against the lot design standards that are stated in Town Code 326-9 lot design. This would specifically go against 326-9A2, which reads, access easement parcels of land created must abut a public street by at least 79 feet. Easements are prohibited as a mean of provided access to a public streets for new parcels. This requirement shall not apply to parcels that are created within parcel zone PUD, Plan Unit Development District. So that was the first one. This would also have to change the certified survey map CSM procedure as how it stands, his parcel cannot be approved for a CSM, so you'd have to change ordinance 326-13D11. Each lot must abut to a public street by at least 70 feet to add the addition of an easement. So therefore, Mr. Murray would be making the request to change 360-79A1, 326-9A2, and 326-13D11. So that B1 Business District can match what Adams County has in their subdivision ordinance. And then just on the side, I have the three ordinances that are actively going to be affected, and then I have a whole bunch of ordinances listed as well those are ones that have the potential to be affected, because all of those ordinances they have stuff set in them by 326 lot design. So by changing the lot design standards, they in turn would have the ability to easily be affected and changed, which I will explain more once I review this backside. But just so you guys know, that's why there is a bunch of ordinances listed there. So then, just a little bit deeper of an analysis of the citizen comment for the proposed easement access. The proposed easement to Chapter 326-9 has the potential to influence all zoning districts within the town of Rome, as the ordinance establishes the foundational standards for lot designs across the municipality. Updating the language of this chapter could indirectly affect the lot design standards of other zoning districts in the future. For clarity, the remainder of this analysis will focus solely on the B1 business district, as it was specifically referenced in the citizen comment prompting this request. The request proposes a change to the frontage minimum in the B1 business district to allow for either 100 feet of frontage or 66 feet of access easement. Implementing this change would require amendments to 3 ordinances, which I have just listed previously. So the first one would be height, setbacks, area, and other requirements in the B1 district. So my analysis and finding would be the existing ordinance requires any parcel created within the B1 business district to have minimum of 100 feet of road frontage. This provision ensures uniformity among parcels and eliminates the creation of no frontage lots and aligns with the broader standards established in Chapter 326-9. So the next one we're looking at would be lot design. The current ordinance I read to you previously, so I'm not going to read it again, but the analysis and findings was that this ordinance mandates that all newly created parcels in the town of Rome must abut a public street by at least 70 feet with no allowance for easements in this measurement. Exceptions apply only to parcels within a planned unit development, which does not apply in this case. Any changes to this ordinance could impact the broader frontage standards throughout Chapter 360. Retaining the current standards supports uniformity and prevents the creation of no frontage lots. And then finally, our 326-13D11, which is our certified survey map procedure. My analysis was that this section outlines the requirements for the approval process of a certified survey maps, CSMs. The current standards are derived from Chapter 326-9 lot designs, which prohibits the use of easements for public street access. If easements access were to be permitted, the CSM approval process would need to be revised to specify the approving authority, example of zoning staff, town administrator, plan commission, town board, and the corresponding approval criteria. As with the other ordinances, maintaining the current standards prevents the creation of no frontage lots and upholds the lot design principles of Chapter 326-9. So in summary, the citizen comment seeks to align the B1 business district standards with those in Adams County for land divisions. To proceed, 3 key ordinances would need to be amended to allow easements as part of frontage measurements. Currently, the ordinances on lot design explicitly prohibits easements as a means of frontage, likely to prevent no frontage lots outside the planned unit development district, as well as prevention of landlocked situations if an easement is improperly recorded or revoked. Allowing easement access would require significant changes to these 3 standards and the processes for lot creation and certified survey map approval. While this comment is currently only looking at the B1 district for now, by changing 326-9 and 326-13, it makes it significantly easier for the same change to be made with any other district within the town of Rome.
Very nice report, very thorough. Do you concur with her analysis and summary?
I would just say generally, as I had stated at the last meeting, the request did have an impact on other ordinances, specifically the subdivision of land ordinance. I would agree that the restriction in the subdivision of land ordinance regulating where easements are allowed and not allowed, that would have to be updated if this request was to move forward. And just maybe a general note, just for everybody's maybe a reminder more than anything. The reason that an easement is allowed for access in the PUD is, number one, you have your project plan. Number two, the operative word is public. As you're likely aware, we have private roads in our PUDs, and so that, because of the private road in the PUD, we have a review process when we have, for example, a subdivision. We set certain standards for those private roads, but also we review that and allow for the access to not have to have frontage along the public road because we have private roads and they're not public.
And just, with regard to the PUD, and in reading the ordinance with regard to PUDs, it says a significant development. Would these parcels okay,
Well, they're not zone PUD, right?
I know right now, but if there was,
To zone them PUD, you would have to likely update the comp plan and do a rezone, and you would have to determine if the development met the standards of a PUD, which I would just recommend looking at the purpose of that section of the ordinance, and, that's not the request, though, that's in front of us.
well, I was just thinking. Do you have any discussion on this?
I have a few questions. In regards to easement, wasn't the storage facility in the Leo's building, isn't that operating on an easement right now in the B1 zoning?
Yes, but it still has frontage along that road. We're talking about this parcel we're looking at would have absolutely no road frontage.
Okay.
It would only have an easement access to the road.
And did you look at how many properties this would affect in the B1 zoning in the town of Rome? Because there's not a lot of B1 zoning as it is.
I don't know necessarily how many individual parcels this would affect, but in general, it would still affect any other.
It could have an effect on any parcel if you start making one change.
Can I just make a comment? So the problem with giving an answer to that question, just in fairness, is that part of what would be changed in the land division ordinance would then allow for divisions subsequently to happen. So you could say how many business zone districts or properties you have, but any one of those could technically then be divided with an easement for access to the back part of it.
I know in the request, Mr. Murray also made reference to the Adams County subdivision regulations. We do have our own ordinances, which would be the prevailing authority, correct?
In this case, yes.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
if no one has any other questions, I make a motion that we deny this request.
I'll second. There's a motion by Bill and a second by Diana to deny the request of Mr. Murray for, I lost my agenda again. I always do that. For allowing the 66-foot easement on the parcel that he has presented to us for exit onto Duffers. Any discussion?
I have a question. Can you address the extent to which you went through to consider different alternatives or options for Glenn or Mr. Murray to do what he's trying to do, and the amount of time and what you looked into? Was he given other there's really no other alternatives to doing what he wants to do.
Access off of Highway 13 directly back into there.
As it was designed on the map that was provided, likely that wouldn't be the case, but if I'm understanding the question, yes, there was considerable time spent with Mr. Murray and his developer to explore the options that might exist. There aren't a lot of options that exist for him to do what he's looking to do. And that includes, I think we had even went to the extent of talking through putting in a road even, as whether that would even lay out or be, cost feasible to do.
That's the answer. That's the question I had. You answered it. Thank you.
Did you have a question, Tom? Or,
Are we still in discussion, or?
yes, we're in discussion after the motion.
And it's not this. I mean, sitting on this committee now for a year, we have come across things. The problem I'm seeing is that residents of this town that are active participants of this town run up against some roadblocks, and we have no way to get around these roadblocks because it's this, or this. We have no modification procedure in this town. We have nothing to help the locals that have made a big investment in this town to get by some of these hurdles that get shot up. And you're just reading the book, Lexi, nothing, don't misunderstand me. But this won't be the first business owner. I mean, I was a business owner too and ran into we're running into roadblocks, and we need to somehow let people do business in this town that are good business owners in this town, and yet we're fighting this town when we want to expand.
I'm fighting a 66-foot easement, which I have a lot of experience with, being a public works director. I don't believe in easements for access to properties. That's why I made my motion.
And I'm not disputing that. I'm just saying that nothing. Everybody heard there's no give or take with this town. It's by the book, and there will be issues that arise. And I've seen them on the board, I've seen them on the plan commission, that the elected officials in this town need to have a little bit of flexibility to get good business owners to stay in this town and add more business to this town. And I felt it, sure Glenn's feeling it right now, that we have no modification to anything. And to get something changed is very difficult. And I would like to help the small business owners we do have in this town. But the motion's on the floor. I guess if discussion is done, you take the vote.
Mr. Murray, please come up to the podium if you'd like, and
thanks for the opportunity to speak, and I guess I would say I don't envy all of your position, but I thank you for your service to the town of Rome. It's a great place. My wife Mackenzie and I have been business owners for 10 years now. You mentioned 112 short-term rentals. We were here when it was only 10, and it was different back then, for sure. So this discussion dates back to sitting right here with my wife and Jamie Giebert, and we were laying out what at the time was 8.6 acres of B1. We were looking at what we were dreaming up that we would do My wife deserves the credit for getting this far, starting with one, and now we have four, and we hope to do another one. And so this idea actually came from Jamie. I certainly didn't give it the thought at the time, a couple years ago, not sure that we would arrive at this point. So we did discuss access off Duffers Trail with Jamie Giebert, the town administrator. Didn't get into all the nuances of easements and modifications and PUDs at that time. And so, yes, I would love to explore the opportunity of this being a PUD, if that would be an opportunity. As Commissioner Gabriel said, there's not a modification process in the town of Rome. There is in Adams County. If I was a couple miles to the south, I wouldn't be 9 months into this. I'd have it done. So I guess I would, it seems like you all feel your hands are tied, understand and respect your position. I would just love for this to go back to staff to try to discuss any other options. There were other things discussed. There was, a non-contiguous lot with 100 feet of frontage because we own the two lots on each side. That does exist in different parts of the state. So I do think there are other paths to do this, and I would appreciate a recommendation to staff to try to meet with us and find a solution. It's not harming anybody. The neighboring property association wants this to happen because if we can't build a house here, our highest and best use is probably to put storage units in this acre of land. It's landlocked. It's that was never discussed with Jamie 2 years ago when we tried to lay out our vision on this 8.6 acres. We've developed it with larger than normal buffers, low density. Our properties contribute to the tax base as well as room tax base.
The property that,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
the property that is, surrounding your property, I know you own the other two lots. However, between those two lots and your property, there is property owned by the Lake Arrowhead Association. It's common area. So you would not be your properties do not touch the property that you would like to have your.
Right, and there's non-contiguous lot designs in the state of Wisconsin where you can have, usually it's like a stream or a waterway or something that it can be one tax key and non-contiguous. So that would be something we would like to do if we could use some of the.
Yeah, but you have property that is owned by a total different entity than you between your properties. And
Right,
that's the area owned by Lake Arrowhead.
Yes, but
It's a
I'm
total
saying
different tax key
non-contiguous,
number.
but that does exist in the state of Wisconsin. You can have something in between two pieces and it be the same tax key.
Another property owner.
There can be it can be a non-contiguous parcel, yes.
The question I have for you, Glenn, you keep saying Jamie Gabert, and I don't know how long ago that was, but in previous conversations you've had with here or with others, you've said Jamie and Emily. So now you're saying Jamie. Was it both of them, one of them, all of them?
This
What was your
specific discussion was with Jamie, because if you go into the history of the file, it was two parcels, we purchased them, we merged them into 8.6. And so we sat down with Jamie before Emily worked here and said, okay, this is 8.6. Here's our plan, what we're thinking we're going to do over time. How should we design the lots? How should we carve this up? At the time, I was thinking of coming in off of Highway 13. And then, she helped educate me on how hard that was to go through DOT approval to come in off of Highway 13. And then so we started strategizing how to maximize the parcel from Archer Avenue and ended up with what the current design is, there still is, because we've developed in such a low-density manner, you could merge this thing back to 8.6 and divide it up different ways, because I haven't developed in a high-density manner. So if there is a path through becoming a PUD, I would love to explore that. If there's a path through appeals, or
The ramifications of changing 3 ordinances, and in my opinion, they are all significant. And it would not just be your property that we would be altering without considerable consideration other than, a few weeks in discussion, in my opinion, to look at all the other parcels potentially that could be affected in the town of Rome based on your request.
respectfully, though, you've got a big county that does allow it.
I think
Well-
that's why the town of Rome has its own ordinances,
our own.
because we didn't like all the county ordinances. That's why we have our own.
I think that's
all I
fair.
can say about
And
this.
the town is developed differently than the rest of Adams County. It had 3 subdivisions in it, and these rules were put in place, and we're just simply being advised based on the rules we have. And I happen to agree that changing 3 of them, the access easement also concerns me when we talk about this with other subdivisions, which is, it seems to me, is the request kind of leaves it out. You want to ignore ours and look at the county, and I understand they do that elsewhere, but then look at the rest of the county. I mean, I love Adams County. We're invested here too as a family. And we do appreciate our small business owners. We don't make it difficult intentionally. We try to follow our laws and do what we can and flex what we can, if the request is reasonable.
Which
I'm
I think
sure
it is
I'm
a,
adverse to pursuing this with staff if there's a way to work it out.
They've
I'm
told us
just
that
not,
they have.
I'm just not going to put a favorable vote on this process, because I don't believe in easements.
Can you explain maybe somebody can explain then? I believe they've done that already. They've told us that, and this is the report. I'm not trying to,
becoming a PUD was never discussed.
more work, but
Well, I'm not either,
Like-
I'm just,
Becoming a PUD was never discussed, and staff didn't
Wasn't?
mention the non-contiguous lot as an option, exploring that.
We did discuss a non-contiguous lot with the county, and Dustin actually did say that he wouldn't approve it, and we don't have, we wouldn't be able to approve it either.
And a PUD is not an option for something of this size, a development of this size.
There isn't a size requirement for PUD. But again, as I said, not only is that a bigger discussion, but it's also one that would require the comp plan revision and a zoning amendment. That's all I said there. And I don't recall us talking about, there were 2 things that I don't recall discussing, although, I mean, there can be further discussions on it. That, I guess, would be one of them. It would be an application just like any other rezoning application, and you would determine whether or not it is consistent with the comp plan and is an appropriate fit for a PUD. The other one that was just mentioned this evening was combining and figuring out some other lot configuration. My only recollection, and this would have been my recollection with Emily some years ago, was whether or not that meets the dimensional lot design requirements. It's the only thing I remember back when we had looked at it. It's not to say that maybe there isn't some, way to reorganize it. I wouldn't be able to speak to that until I saw it and put it through that lot design.
And speaking of changes to our comp plan, like we sometimes have to do with a map, or if there's a parcel that needs to be rezoned due to something, that's the next step. But just so people are aware, that comp plan was done in 2016, and it is coming due for a revision. There was a committee that worked through that comp plan, and it was never taken to North Central Regional Planning for completion. The only thing they got was a map, and nothing was followed through on. So if we need to look at, which we would be doing, the comp plan, that might be something that could be taken under consideration at that time. But you're also looking at a change to not only 3 laws here, but also the comp plan. We're not making it difficult for you. It's what's on the books and what we have to consider. And an easement, an access easement on property that we don't have, we don't get involved in Lake Arrowhead Association issues, and they did provide us with a letter, but they haven't even committed. I mean, are you saying that if it's not an easement, that common land is being divided and you're taking ownership? I mean, with an access easement and changing our road frontage, and subdivisions, there's a lot implicated here with what would need to change.
Yeah, I was referencing non-contiguous lot in that, where you could form 100 feet of frontage if you allowed a non-contiguous lot. And I didn't get the feedback from the staff from the county on that, so if there is any email trails or anything that you could share, I would love to have that.
So, Lexi, you do not believe the non-contiguous lot is something that we can explore with regard to this?
No, I know that's not a path because I contacted Dustin to see if that was something that the county would even approve, and the county says that they would not even, they couldn't approve it even at the county level. And I know we wouldn't be able to prove it at our level, so that would not be an option.
Yeah, which wasn't shared with us, so that's the reason I continue to bring it up.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, the only option that's not off the table yet is to have them come back with a planned unit development. That's the only option that's officially not off the table.
Well, you have to look at the ordinance.
Or a lot design. Again, I said that also wasn't, fully explored, the thought of combining it and redividing it. I don't even know if that's a possibility. My recollection was that lot design as it exists right now was pretty close to the maximum number of lots that you could get on that parcel to meet our lot design requirements today, unless we adjusted our lot design requirements.
The non-contiguous lot is using frontage from the lots on each side of the point where this lot abuts Duffers to get to 100 feet of frontage, because it's there and we own it, and it's just where this seems like a simple ask, but it's obviously very complicated.
I thought there was no 100 feet frontage based on everything we're looking here. They're looking to get a lesser than 100-foot frontage. So is there or isn't there 100 feet of available frontage there? And quite frankly, back to the PUD question, what, is part of it going to be in the town? Part of it's in Lake Arrowhead? I mean, because the access easement would have to be part of that. I mean, a PUD is a completely different animal for larger, I mean, I suppose, but that was also, is that not, it's in here. This has all been touched on, and I appreciate the extent that you were able to have these conversations, whatever you conversed with the people before them, but there's quite a bit that would have to change here, including changes to our comp plan.
Us becoming a PUD was never discussed.
Because it's not really a viable option.
It says that in our ordinance that the access would not pertain to a PUD. So, which would mean that if you were a PUD, then this would not be to the level that it is right now and changing the other ordinances, correct? But I don't know if what you own, if that is even something that's viable. That
Yeah,
is
I mean,
allowed.
it
We
felt
have to
that-
check the ordinance on PUD and what the ordinance is with regard to that.
Yeah, it felt like a planned use discussion sitting down here, dreaming up what 8.6 B1 acres in what we feel is a key area in the town could be.
Is the 8-point-some acres one property now or two properties today?
It's 4 today.
It's 4 today.
Even in the modification process that you supplied us with and looking at their website, the plan commission or the plan committee must apply county ordinance provisions as they are written. So this is the way ours are written right now. So again, a lot would have to change, as would our comp plan, in order to do this for you. That's not saying that we don't appreciate our small businesses.
Yeah,
Trying
that
to
plan that
understand,
I,
and I know that they've made every attempt possible, so have the people prior to them, to help you maximize what you want to do with this property. And we understand that. We appreciate that, the investment you made as every other business owner in the town.
yeah, the markup on
Says
that
provide verifiable facts upon which the committee may base its decision. And I believe we have all of that.
yeah, the markup on that modification was an example from my engineer where he did a modification at the staff level in Adams County.
But again, as Commissioner Capel stated, we have our own zoning for a reason.
Yeah, I would also recommend that you consider a modification process for unique situations. 'Cause- So yeah, like I said, I'm 9 months into this in Rome, and it would have been done in a week or two in Adams County if you don't think shouldn't happen, I guess that's a different issue, but I think it's a common sense request, and the neighboring HOA wants it to happen.
Well, have they committed to you a process of either a certificate or actual membership?
They have offered to annex us into Lake Arrowhead, this parcel into Lake Arrowhead. And
again,
they would
back to
probably
Adams-
consider taking our whole 6.8 acres into Lake Arrowhead if that was an option.
And back to Adams County, if people are under Adams County, we know from Adams County they would not do this with an access easement.
That I had a discussion with Dustin Grant, and he said if this hit his desk, that he would approve it.
Well then, are you not telling us the truth? I guess and Dustin, I don't know what to say about that.
For non-contiguous, I was talking about the
Yes.
They
Thank you.
they have language for no access parcels.
And you
Those
are-
are two different things.
And what we would be essentially creating here is the ability for someone to actually have a B1 or any parcel with no front access to it.
Yep.
Correct.
That's what would happen.
That's correct.
If we would change all of these things and our comp plan to accommodate this.
Or create a process for
create
one-offs.
A B1 or any parcel with no front access.
All right, I'd ask to consider a modification process for one-offs that make sense for the betterment of the community. In this case, the community wants it.
They haven't given you anything though to state, and they haven't given you anything to state.
Mrs. Chair, you spoke to Lake Arrowhead. Can you share what that conversation looked like?
I spoke with John Halaska, who's the board president.
Could you share the,
I asked him if Arrowhead is granting an easement over their property, because that's what you would be doing. And they said that they were going to work with you with regard to, there was no easement required over their property, as long as you are a member, that parcel is a member of Lake Arrowhead, according to the covenants, and I've read the covenants, that yes, you would be granted the ability to utilize that property for a driveway, which is considered an accessory under the definition in the covenants. That was my discussion.
thank you.
But that has no bearing on what the ordinances are here in the town of Rome.
No, it's just speaking to my comment that a modification process should exist. The community wants this to happen. It's common sense, and there's no path to work through this that's reasonable to everybody in this room. And I just respectfully request that, as a community, we try to solve for that.
I would love to see additional business owners come into the town of Rome and to prosper and to thrive. However, there are reasons and there are ramifications of the changes that this Plan Commission does. And your request would have significant ramifications throughout the entire town of Rome and not just your parcel. And that's what my concern is. And until additional research is in with regard to, and you're looking at our entire town right now with our zoning, until we get additional information and research on what ramifications or the implications of our changes would have on the entire town of Rome, I'm uncomfortable with granting this request.
My request was only in B1.
It has implications on other aspects, though. And I don't know what all those are right now, but I'm uncomfortable, again, granting a request on something that we really don't know the total implication of this would be on the entire town.
Yeah, I wish the report would have given more of an analysis of where it might come up in B1, because there's not a lot of B1.
It could potentially
that's-
happen in all of our zoning
That's
districts,
what
not
we don't,
just
we
B1.
need to
Yes,
have
if you vote for that to
answers.
be allowed in other districts, you could also vote to only allow it in B1.
Well, it's the additional ramifications and the implications of this that make me feel uncomfortable with allowing this to go through at this point.
Well,
And
I'd love the opportunity to meet with staff to continue to find a solution here if that's an option.
I believe that there's a charge for their time now, and this is one of the
Happy to
reasons.
cover for the time.
But I'm just enlightening you to that the town board did pass, because we do consult with people, we help businesses. We've even helped businesses, finance their driveways in the Rome Town Center.
Yeah, we should
So,
pay for their
I mean-
time. I'm happy to pay for their time.
I happen to agree with our chair that at this point in time, the implications of this and the unknown ramifications, well, actually, I think we know the ramifications. They've been spelled out for us. They're right there
She
in the
put
letter.
down all, she
She
did.
put down everything.
And we just have to-
I thought it was very thorough, Glenn. We put these people in charge of our departments. They come out, they've got education. They work with all of our laws.
Well, we do have that motion and the discussion. Is there any more discussion?
No, like I said earlier in the discussion, we need to have some modifications in this town, and that's the problem we don't have. It's cut and dry or go to appeals, but now, seems like after my appeals case, everybody's trying to stop people from going to appeals, so we have no cut or dry, no modification to any town ordinance. And yes, I agree with the structures in the Lake Districts. I agree with all those. But when you have unique situations that come up in this town, there needs to be a way for residents to work through it and not be shot down. And, I mean, if we were such a great town to be in, we'd be slammed with new businesses here. But we're not seeing new businesses pounding on our door. So we have to investigate some modification process, not just for this, but for things that come up over the next 20 years when we're no longer sitting here on this bench. And a lot of us won't be sitting here in a year on this bench. But we want to work with our citizens and get them to reach their goals when, in exchange, that'll improve the town of Rome. And I feel like a lot of people are being shot down by our stringent ordinances. And I do believe they need to be stringent, but I do believe in some situations there should be a modification process to start to move things forward and not have to run to appeals. Call your...
Nick?
Just a general note, and it's really more general to future agenda items, so I will just not say anything right now and say something at future agenda items, if I may.
Yes. Okay, then I guess we'll take a vote on the motion in front of us, and that is to deny the request. And it's been seconded, and there's no more discussion. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
The
Thank you for
motion's
everybody's time.
denied. Thank you. Okay. Next agenda item. Attorney Flanagan.
If I may.
Yes.
So just a general, maybe idea for your next meeting. As you may be aware, the town board did budget the review and update of the zoning code. And I could have said this at the last agenda item, but I think it's relevant here. It would be likely a good timing to bring at your next meeting a maybe status update and establish a timeline for the review and update of your zoning code. And then my general recommendation, I know Lexi likes when I give general recommendations at the future agenda items, would be to start creating a punch list of items that you can consider and discuss as you move through the update to your zoning code. One of those might be a modification process that's some middle ground to the, the idea. It's probably some kind of special exception, if you're going to put it there. You would probably want to have some standards because, again, you need to think about, anyone that would come in and how that would be processed. Again, I'm just saying the timing would lead to, I think, some discussion about timeline, a punch list of items that you want to review with whomever is going to be brought in, because that kind of keeps things moving forward and doesn't put you at a stagnant spot with this or any other request that's coming in.
Okay, thank you. You have a land purchase document on here?
Yeah, it's a document I was working on creating with CDA that they recommended to this board for review. I'm still working on some things with it though, so it wasn't ready for this agenda. So hopefully it'll be ready for next time. I make no promises, but I'm hoping to have it ready for review for next time.
And I also think the comp plan we have on there, that was carried forward from the last meeting because we do need to look at that. It was never revised. The maps need to be updated and all of these things are kind of meshing together in a very timely manner with the work that we're doing across the town, in the Rome Town Center and in the town, and with the zoning code audit and update. That'll be very helpful with that as well. And I know that we could probably do a lot of that work in-house with Lexi's education, training, and her resources at UWSP, that we could do the savings on that and do that here. We have a very good outline for that. And rather than farming it out to North Central Regional Planning, which basically has a boilerplate, fill in the blanks, we can be more active in what we decide to put in that comp plan. So I think that'll be helpful.
Anything else?
I'm really anxious to hear ideas on a modification process, because I don't like telling people no, but it's
Yeah, I don't necessarily like telling people no either, but if we're gonna have laws and we follow them and we have our own zoning code for a reason to protect our community, we just need to find a better way to help people understand that. And every little, this is quite complicated with all the changes that were presented for the one this evening. And all the possibilities had been worked through with staff, not once, but twice.
I would just like to add, I'm looking forward to these short-term rentals going to Lexi with the heat map. That was awesome. But look at the conversation we had here tonight on 3 items.
Right.
And we're still getting out of here by 7 o'clock.
I
Now, come
understand.
May, when we have 5 short-term rentals, we would have been here to 9 o'clock. So I think we're having better conversations up here
More substantive.
with, and again, whenever there's an issue with them and you need our opinion on something, obviously put them on the agenda. But this was the first night that I thought we had good dialogue up here. It's the first night I got to see where all the short-term rentals were in the town of Rome. And we approve them, we see the address, but with what you gave us tonight, it really put it all in perspective of where they're congregating and where we go from here. And when you gave us a total number of short-term rentals, it goes up and comes down, but it's still sitting at that 100 to 120. It's like supply and demand will dictate it. Now, if we start to see it getting up to 180 to 200, we may have to have a further conversation on something. But ever since Jamie's been here, it's been at that 1 to 120, and I think that we're still averaging out about that. So your map was awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, it was good work, and I would piggyback on some of that with what we've been doing for years before you were on this commission, is that we've tried to streamline processes like the short-term rental, put the zoning permit out there instead of that, to make it easier for those investments that are, those investors that are buying homes and investing in our community, because they want to be here and love it as much as we do. So that process has been made easier, the fees have gone down, so there are strides being made to help people that want to come here and invest here.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, wait, no, I have to give you the next date, and I already put away my agenda.
It's
February
11th at 4 PM,
February 11th at
2025.
4,
Sorry.
you are Johnny on the spot. Okay. Do I need a motion to adjourn? Meeting adjourned.